What's going on, geeks? We're back. We're back again with more Dethklok news, reviews, movements,
content, and just in general.
You hear him, you know him. It's Lucian. How you doing, buddy?
Good. It's been a crazy fucking week. We played 2 concerts last week at the time of this recording. You're about to play 2 this week. We're playing 1 this week. It's just a fucking crazy concert couple of weeks.
Consumed by music, which again,
exactly.
That's why we're here today.
Yeah, which is kind of perfect for today because Dethklok released Army of the Doomstar last week. Our review is already out. Me and Anna talked about it, gushed over it. It's on YouTube, it's on Spotify, it's everywhere. But I was like, let's do more than just that. We have to review the album aside from the movie because they're both different, but they kind of act with each other. And then I was like, fuck, dude, I even want to talk about the score because the score album came out, the soundtrack came out for the movie as well, and that's just beautiful. It's like almost, I say this very lightly, but it's almost more impressive than Dethalbum IV. Like, Brendan Small is a true composer, and I love the way he does what he does. But today we're talking about Dethalbum IV, which was the long-awaited 4th release from Dethklok. And everyone was freaking out when they dropped Aortic Desecration earlier this year.
Single a few months or a month or 2 ago or something like that.
Yeah.
Went off there, which, again, once that plays into the movie, and I don't want to like refrain from spoilers here necessarily because I assume probably if you're listening to this, you've at least you're into it. But like when I watched the movie, obviously, like a lot of the shows, so when they had the episodes of the show, like a lot of the songs would be like, okay, well, this one's obviously Mermaid or they're going into the water. Like this one's obviously, and so on and so forth. But when you're doing a whole movie, there was obviously some songs, which I thought was cool then because there's some songs on this that like, you know, obviously could have been tied into this at least a little bit if you look at lyrics for some of these songs, but like Poisoned by Food, for example, the 3rd track, not inherent to the plot necessarily, like at least on the surface level,
or even like Mutilation on a Saturday Night.
Yeah,
that has nothing to do with the movie. Like there's a handful of tracks that are just straight up hardcore Dethklok tracks, and then there are like a couple of them that are actually in the movie. The 2 that I'm thinking of are Aortic Desecration and Song of Salvation. Those are the only 2 that they actually like play in the movie.
That's true.
But there's like a one little riff of Mermaid 3 at the end of the movie, right at the climax. Like there's a right. And if you guys are listening and you've seen the movie, you know why. But yeah, a lot of this music wasn't in the movie, which I actually thought was a strong move. I thought that was probably the best idea because you don't want to spoil everything in the movie. You want it to be 2 separate experiences that play off of each other, and they definitely do. But dude, when this came out, I was listening like, okay, first off, I woke up to the alert like in the morning from Spotify, and I went back to bed. I was like, well, I know what I'm listening to today. And I've been binging it so fucking hard that like when I get in the car to take Anna to work, she's like, listen, I'm obsessed with Dethklok too, but you gotta like mix it up
something
on the way
else.
I know. I've
put it through. I've put at least like 2 full listens to the whole album, and then you have heard more of the other singles and songs. So
yeah,
I have a pretty good grasp, I would say. But like it is definitely something different. And I think before we really dig into the actual songs of the album, which again, go listen to it. We're doing a review, but like. Which again, the album though is free Spotify. Like if you have a streaming platform, you can go listen to that. The movie itself is about like $20 most outlets for streaming. Yeah. But yeah, the album, if you have any streaming services, you can go find it now. But before we get into that, I do think it was a pretty good, like I said, like a move to not make all of the songs in the movie because also. Unlike in years past when they're like, oh shit, this thing's getting popular and it's huge, we should take this thing on the road. They already announced the tour, they already announced all the stuff, like you're gonna see it here in Omaha. And so I do think that it was like, here, you can listen to these songs, but we're not gonna like blow the entire load on the show. Right. So then that way when you go see these things live, because usually, like, you know, I'm trying to think of what's the episode where they're like, you're deleting all the tracks, you're making ramen with the bass tracks.
Oh yeah.
Whatever song.
And he's like, you're drinking the guitar tracks.
Yeah, but like that had like that crazy, like they're all like green skulls in the sky. And I remember seeing some live, like they did that. They matched the episodes up with the shows kind of thing. So you knew where you were at if you're a fan, but also just looked cool for visuals on stage. I feel like that's maybe why they didn't do as much of this. Cause I'm sure, if they play, when they play like, Mermaider 3, there's probably going to be the big fucking whale or whatever, and so on and so
like
forth.
That kind of graphic, for sure.
But the rest of the songs...
Each one of their shows, like, tells a story, too. It's like its own private event that only you get to know about, which I think is pretty fun. Like, they all have their different murder face things or their different crowd participation kind of fun things. And I'm really excited to see what the movie version of that is, because they've been playing essentially the same set since they started going on the road. Like, they've changed it up slightly, but a lot of it, aside from the Adult Swim Fest, has been the same. So this is going to be a whole new set with new graphics, and I can't wait to hear these songs live. But let's get into the album, dude. Obviously, Aortic Desecration was like kind of our symbol that this is something heavier and more progressive.
Aortic Desecration. How could I be so wrong?
We kind of had this conversation before one of our shows where we were ranking the albums, and we'll get to that, I think. But I think what Brendan did with this album was he just added more. And I mean, so did Gene. Like, everyone who worked on this album just added more of what they do. And by doing that, they allowed it to become like just a smidge heavier than it's been before.
Which is already a feat to behold in a way, because of how heavy the nature of the beast is, essentially. But then, like, to add depth to it, I don't want to call it like more modernized, because it keeps their same sound. In a good way, this album, I think, is more of the same. In a good way. Because usually when you say
classic Dethklok,
right, like, and again, just to shit on like one of the bigger ones, because it's easy to pick on Metallica, because everybody, like, my dad's like, and Justice for All, fuck yeah. As soon as the Black Album happened, I was like, all right, I'm over Metallica now for like X amount of years, and they did Saint Anger or whatever. But like, it wasn't more of the same. They took a direction, and some people, like, they love the stuff, and I'm just using them as a big example because they have like 30 albums. But like, Dethklok here, I feel like, and without getting too far into this already, like, the first 4 or 5 songs felt for me very much more of the same, but with like a different bit of power, like just something a little bit more produced, manufactured, maybe even thought through. Maybe they did just have more time and care. I mean, it's been 10 years removed now since the last thing, but like, so you do have 10 years to figure out these songs, but like, more of the same in this case for me wasn't a bad thing. It was just something that I had noticed. I was like, okay, this is like you had brought up, like Gojira style, like a little bit more. They're older now too, but like modern death metal, not just straight power raw.
They brought it modern for sure, and they didn't go like doomcore or any of that kind of shit. They stayed to the traditional Dethklok sound, but it just feels updated and, like you were saying, like better produced, more orchestrated, and like better composed. Like, there was keyboard tracks on a bunch of stuff I was listening to that I was like, just the keyboard tracks alone were fucking wild. Like, so it felt like Brendan really put everything he had into the last batch of content he was making, and I think it shows. And like we were kind of talking before the show, there's funny things about the album and there's serious things about the album. Like, one of my favorite things is in the movie where Nathan goes like, I'm not the guy that people go to for salvation. I'm the guy that writes songs about your guts being liquefied by a weed whacker. And that's literally Gardener of Vengeance, the first song on the album. There's like a weed whacker sound. And I just read an interview today with Brendan Small where he was like, I rented a weed whacker and just brought it into the studio and revved it up. And the studio smelled like gasoline for like literally a week or two. I was like, that's fucking metal.
Nice,
like, that's fucking cool. You went out and you did the work. You didn't just go, I'm going to get a clip off YouTube. No, you wanted to do it for real. And I love that they set up jokes like that for you to be like listening to the album after the movie and being like, oh my God, that's hilarious.
Right.
Because it's total classic Dethklok. And
there's hints of humor.
The music in this toys with the idea that the movie does of the fist versus the hand. Are you the fist that destroys everything in front of it, or are you the hand that reaches out for other life? And in this album, you see them go from Gardener of Vengeance, the fist, to SOS, the hand. And it's kind of a beautiful transition to me. Aortic Desecration is the second song, like we were saying. That's just, when you see the movie, you're like, that's appropriate. Like, the way they use that song, you're like, yep, that's classic Dethklok, but heavier. That should be what that's used for me.
Mm-hmm. You know, and just like an aesthetic note, I think just in general, I think Brendan's just got better at doing the voice. I think that he just got a better death metal voice now.
I was kind of scared at first when Aortic Desecration came out, because I was like, okay, it's a little different. He's doing some squeals. He's doing some other stuff that he usually doesn't do. I like it, but let's see how it holds up.
Right. Even like doing some highs.
Yeah. And throughout this album, he's reproven himself. And it's funny because in the movie, there's a whole animated sequence after like the main like thing happens with him and Abigail, or before that happens, when he has his whole little PTSD panic attack. It does this whole little animated spiel where it kind of catches you up on what's been happening and does all these cool animations. And one of the like headlines that's getting read is like, can Nathan Explosion like make Dethklok what it once was? And I think that was a big pressure on Brendan after these 10 years. It was like, can he still bring it? Can Gene still bring it? Can all these guys still bring it? And they've proven it, man. I mean,
I think wholeheartedly.
This shit is like well thought out. It breaks multiple layers. There's a song on here which is obviously the Murderface song. It's Deadface.
Yeah.
And in the movie, there's a scene where they get attacked by the tribunal. All these rockets are going off. Squizgar's in shock. He's freaking out. He's kind of airplaying guitar to be comfortable because everyone knows that's his thing. Toki puts a guitar with a tuner in his hand, and he realizes he's spelling out Deadface by playing those notes. And then it immediately goes into that song as they're kind of chasing down Murderface and trying to do an exorcism on him. Well, that song is played that way. Like, it spells out Deadface when they play it. And I thought that was one of the most like just genius, small, tiny details to make a song even more epic. And when you listen to the beginning of it, like with those acoustic kind of chill, creepy vibes, and it builds and it builds, and then it just goes to that first drop, and you know what I'm talking about.
It's heavy, heavy, heavy.
Oh, it's so fucking heavy.
That was actually because you told me to. It was a week ago, and you were like, "Hey, this, you know, like the album is fully out now." That because they dropped on the same day as the movie, I believe, like the full album on it that Tuesday.
Everything dropped on that Tuesday. Yeah.
That was I guess the single. I had heard it, Aortic Desecration first because it's been out for a while. But like when I was like, "Okay," you're like, "You need to listen to this one," and I was like, "Okay." So I sat down with that one first, and I was like, oh, "Okay, yeah." So this is, I mean. That immediately when I was like, all right, first of all, this is going halfway through the album, and I feel that they're going to tell a story through this, much like they would through the movie, to some degree.
Oh,
like
yeah.
They do. And so I was like, I don't know if this is, like, if the placements of this is important or not, like, at that time. But then now hearing it, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, again, no, that makes a lot of sense. And again, yeah, it kind of transcends where they were for album 1, then 2 got a little more refined. 3 was like, obviously, let's keep doing more of the same, and now we have this. But again, yeah, like being 10 years removed, I was pretty I was surprised about halfway through the album. So we can keep kind of going. Yeah, there's like Poison by Food. There's the third.
That one has such a catchy chorus.
It does. That was the biggest thing that stood out to me to that song. Because like what I was saying, if there was, and this isn't even negative, I'm not going to rate it yet by any means, but I was like, by the 4th song in, I was like, okay, all right. Like, you know, because it's just pounding and pounding and pounding at you. Like, it kind of needs to, and it's fucking death metal, so it's going to. But by the time you get to, then Mutilation on a Saturday Night, and I believe it's either that one or Bloodbath in the top of my head, because I can't remember exactly how that one starts.
Oh, Bloodbath. I love that the beginning of Bloodbath, that riff. It's classic Squizgar.
I think like, that one's my favorite song on the album.
That one is in my top 3 or 4, I would say, for sure. Bloodbath, if you guys go listen to this album right now, we're not going to keep fucking saying this, but just fucking do it.
Just do it.
But it's one of those ones where the beginning riff, where you kind of listen to it, you're like, oh, I can feel that this is Dethklok.
Right.
Like, I can feel it in my bones, and it's almost a nostalgia from, like, album 2 for me.
That's
like,
true.
Hearing some of the songs on here, I'm like, I get that same feeling that I did when Dethalbum 2 came out, and you were like, holy shit, this is so different from the first one. And each album, I mean, has been different. Like, the first one was super basic and, like, just getting the idea out and toying with it. It was more of a comedy album. It was kind of back and forth.
Thunder Horse.
Yeah. The second album was like, okay, this is our first attempt at a legitimate release with, like, more depth to it, more backing vocals, more everything. The third album was like, okay, think Sky Hunter, the song, and that feeling you get in the beginning where it's just super airy and solo-y and everything's like just so fucking intense. That brought it even further into the professional landscape. And now I would say that if you took this album and didn't tell someone it was Dethklok, and they had never heard of Dethklok before, and you only showed them the fourth album, they'd have no fucking idea that this was even like a movie cartoon band.
Right, I agree. And that's why, as like, you know, by the time that I got to like song 4, 5, 6, and then it starts to pick up the heaviness again before it kind of brings a conclusion. But like, and not to be a broken record, but I was like, okay, this is more of the same. I love it. I dig it. They're obviously proving they can bring it, but then it gives you this like respite. It gives you like a little bit of breathing room with a lot more like rhythm. Even I would just say a lot more. I don't even want to say melody or rhythm, but like it isn't just pounding metal the entire time after like the first 4 songs basically were, which is again what you want. But then by the time they hit you after song like 4, 5, 6 in that like middle range, it doesn't soften. It just adds a lot more depth. It adds just like a lot more different style of heavy metal, like a little bit more old school, a little bit like you say, like the loud blazing 80s hair metal guitar solos that Swiss does. That's really high, and he's obviously playing with Toki and harmonic there, so like one's low, one's high, and they're matching solos as they go through. And like it's still authentically them, but it gives you this bit of a break. Then about halfway through it, I was like, oh fuck yeah! So there is more depth to this album that they're going to bring, besides just like, hey, we're gonna fucking punch you in the dick for 10 songs in a row, which is great. But then when I found that, I was like, okay, that's gonna elevate like a whole point on this album scale for me. But I was pleasantly surprised about that, especially after listening to Deadface first, Aortic Desecration, then going through the album. I was like, God damn, this is gonna be fucking heavy, and it was, and is until especially around that area, and it kind of gives it some breath. And I was like, that's really good. I was very impressed, especially just like, I mean, Gene Hoglan's a goddamn beast. Obviously,
dude, his fills in this, he doesn't leave a second of air.
No.
It's constantly like just filling every little second with something. And there was a couple songs on here where I literally had to pause it, and I was like, holy fuck, Gene. Like,
wild.
I think this is the hardest I've ever seen him go. Because I think, again, there was that pressure to be Pickles after this long. Can you still do it, you know? And like, there's like a couple songs. There's a couple songs in this album where I think it's probably 6 and 7, I Am the Beast and Horse of Fire, where I think he went the hardest on lyrics. Yeah. And there's a lot of stuff in here that, like, he always puts very cryptic messages in his lyrics. And, like, some shit is about the movie or the show, and some of it isn't. Some of it's very clearly just, hey, you died this way, and some of it's really crazy. But I wanted to read this really quick. It's from Horse of Fire, the 7th track on the album. And it's towards the end of the song. He says, Crackish has fallen, sisters have wept, Oracle phasing, star still blazing. And I kind of like that. And there's even stuff in there that I'm still like, I don't understand some of the things you're saying, but it's like so cryptic that, like, you know, Metalocalypse fans for years are going to be dissecting these lyrics, just like they did with Galacticon 2 when that was supposed to be like the unofficial ending of Dethklok. Sure. People are going to be digging through these lyrics and just, what is the meaning? And I love that he did that. Like, there's so much hidden meaning in this stuff that you could probably uncover some kind of crazy theory about what's going on through just the lyrics. But yeah, I agree with you. During the middle of the album, there was a nice respite between like Bloodbath and Horse of Fire that you're like, okay, this is this is a little more complicated. It's not just straight punching you in the face, where Gardener of Vengeance through like Mutilation on the Saturday Night was. It's a little more complex, like you were saying. It's a little more. I don't want to say thought out.
No,
but like there's more to it.
The way that they played rhythm in this band too, kind of getting into the weeds a little bit more, like musician mind speak here. There's a lot of technicality in Dethklok's music that I feel like maybe gets played over a bit because it does have such like a defined style where like you can tell that like Metallica, again, to bring it back, a lot of thrash metal and like the way that Molten does everything is all down picking, like it's so you're getting like chut 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 chut, where you can tell when they're doing their things they go up and down like da 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 da, and it gives this gallop almost to like everyone. It's like it's a signature move of theirs, and it's a little bit different. It's also how he plays the bass. It's all together. They don't use a lot of like shrill, hard, like individual staccato notes. They kind of let it flow and find rhythm and just like da 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 da, and like has this big gallop to it, like I was saying. But with so like I said, sort of like over the past few albums, I feel like sometimes maybe like no one gives them the credit. That's not fair because I know that they do, but it's very much like there's a lot more going on than you see, especially like if you do play the music and you're like, let me check out a tab, and you're like, oh fuck, I knew this was a million miles an hour, but like, oh shit, he's hitting scales I'm not really hearing. He's doing things in a way that I wouldn't play them. And that's just music in general too. But with this album in specific, the fourth one, that's why I was like, I feel like they were willing to branch away from just their signature styles of what they're doing and bring a little bit, I guess you could even just say melody, like a little bit actual, like more, besides just riff writing, here's an orchestrated whole song. You were bringing up keyboards. There's a whole bunch of shit in these that like were there but are being personified here, I believe, in a much better way. And like I said, there's a lot of bands where even Ghost, as much as I'm not a big fan of Ghost, like I am, I like them. That's cool. That's great. And I think I said this on our Ghost review like a year ago. They are the epitome of a band where there's a lot more going on than like where you would hear what you would think there is if you're just a casual listener, or if you really don't care and you're like, yeah, I've heard it on the radio 1,000 fucking times. But then you go see them live, or you watch live video of them playing it, or you try to attempt a tab, you're like, this is hard. Like there's actually a lot more melody, a lot more song structure. Just honestly, and it's they made a joke about it in the movie too. He's like, this is a guitar's tuners. You actually have to use this. Remember, when you were good, you try to play. It's like, and he's like,
that was funny.
So I mean, like they kind of always make the joke that like they're guitar gods. They're really good, but they're like, I don't know how to fucking read music. Like, why would I do that? Like, so they don't have much theory, for want of a better term. But in this album, obviously Brendan Small does, but they just wanted to write straightforward death metal. This I feel like has a lot. I'm like, oh god, there's actually a lot going on behind the scenes in this music. It's much more like an orchestra, where like you might not always hear the violin, but if it's not there,
for sure,
then you're gonna notice that it's not there if you didn't have it.
This was very orchestrated, very well orchestrated, and you can tell that Brendan was literally sitting in the studio going, okay, I need to add something here and like make this fill out more, and how am I gonna like compress this down to like what I want it to be. And honestly, like once you get to Deadface, I immediately was like, this is one of my favorite albums by Dethklok. I think Satellite Bleeding was like a moment to go, hey, we're still Dethklok.
Yeah, we're still gonna like blow your dick off your body.
Right. It wasn't like a chill song, but it was just kind of a steady song. Satellite Bleeding. It didn't really impress me, but it didn't piss me off. It was just kind of there. If anything, if I were to pick one song out of this entire album and call it filler, I would call Satellite Bleeding filler.
I'm gonna have to agree with you there. I mean, even the fourth one, Mutilation on a Saturday Night, I think that's the one that has like a really tricky rhythm pattern in it. And that's like its whole, because it feels like it's behind the beat, but then it catches up somehow. It's either that one or Bloodbath. I'm fucking around now because I'm not trying to play it out loud on the stream, but like, it's one of those two that has like a really tricky rhythm pattern. I was like, it almost like hits your ear like, is that a fuck up? Like, and then like, but like obviously it's not, because then it all comes together and they release the album that way. But like it has those things. I didn't think anything was filler. I mean, maybe Poisoned by Food as well, because it's like pushing after the single and it's like, let's continue to be heavy. But like, I would agree with you. The ninth track there, Satellite Bleeding, is probably, if there was one to be like, hey, we just need to continue to fill out this album and then also bring it back to a heavy mood on it because we're telling a story. That's serving its purpose. So let's just write a good metal song here. and
Yeah.
kind of do that. So I agree with you there, because everything else, especially like, and I will say, we were talking about it before, not this show, but at one of our shows when we were ranking the albums, you know, I wasn't sure how hot or cold I sat on this. I was like, it's obviously good. It's different, like we've said a billion times now. But I was like, is it my favorite album? I don't know. And now that I've watched the movie, though, and I have even the context that we do or don't get out of it, I would venture to say, even if I don't move my placement of it in my favorite albums, just because of nostalgia, really more than anything else, too.
Right.
I definitely, like I said before, I was like, that took it a whole, like, if I was going to call this a 7, now it's an 8. If it was an 8, now it's a 9. And like, wherever you want to land on it, I feel like the way that this was presented, and then watching the movie and having connotation for half the shit, it bumped up my in favorability for me quite a bit in that regard.
And I knew that was going to happen, and that's why I wanted you, because when you were like, hey, you want to record this today, I was like, fuck, did you watch the movie yet? Because honestly, like, I knew that it would affect how you heard or like thought of the music. It just kind of makes more sense once you watch the movie. Like, SOS, Song of Salvation, is literally the song that rallies the army of the Doomstar. So like, if you don't watch the movie, you're kind of ruining it for yourself by listening to the album first.
That's true.
It takes away the experience of hearing that for the first time. That's why I watched the movie first, because I just didn't want to ruin anything. But Song of Salvation, to me, felt like another Black Fire Upon Us from 2.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It was another giant sky building, crazy, like, speech to the people kind of a moment. And we hadn't really seen something like that since Black Fire Upon Us in season 2 and on that second album.
So
again, that was like a nice little throwback.
I agree, and like, no spoilers or anything, but like, obviously there's a few goofy things that like Oftenson has to say, and like all other stuff, like during like and like when Oftenson gets fucked up in season 2 and he's like about to die, and then Nathan hits him over the head and he's like, that's my bread and butter you're fucking with. And like, there's callbacks to that kind of stuff later in the movie, but then also having, like I said, these, since we're talking about the album, having that connotation, like I said, I would recommend, if you're completely like, you know, that oblivious to all of this so far and you haven't watched either or listened to either, and that's what we're here for, if you have the ability, watch the movie first. I did it the other way and it didn't fuck it up for me, but you're absolutely right, where like I remember in season 2, and I felt like there was actually like a lot of, I think that it's funny that you bring that up, because I was thinking about season 2 like this entire movie while I was watching, because I watched it again.
That's cool.
I watched it right before we started recording here. I was thinking about season 2 quite a bit, because that season, and just going back through Dethklok lore, like season 1 was obviously just kind of like, here's this cartoon, let's see if it sticks. It's about a death metal band, and if like it all falls apart and we don't get renewed and we don't get another season, we're telling the story, but it's not. There's not enough told to ruin it for you. But then obviously when they got picked up, and then they're like, oh no, like these guys might have like some like godly powers, there's obviously something bigger at work here that they've kind of like referred to. But I'll be honest, when I was a kid watching the show, I just thought it was like they named it Metalocalypse, because like, oh, that's sick. It's like, yeah, like the Metal Apocalypse sounds tight, and this is band, that's a great name for a show. Then you're gonna name the band something else.
It wasn't until the end of that first season that you even learned that it's something that's about to happen, because it's like the death of the holy man when Salacia kills the priest. It's like, he says, like, this is the beginning of the Metalocalypse, and you're like, oh fuck, like what does that mean? And then the whole fucking show built up this event that we have no idea what it is. So to like see that finally was so crazy, but to have a whole soundtrack and an album to go with it, because the soundtrack, the score released the Friday of the week last week, and everyone was like, where's the score, and it finally came out, and it's fucking amazing. So if you love Dethklok, Metalocalypse, any of this, go listen to the score on it's out streaming as well. It goes hand in hand with the album, I would say. And you kind of appreciate the movie a little bit more after listening to the score, because there's moments like Dusty, we're gonna take a little pause on the album talk. You remember when General Crozier was writing the letter to his family?
Yeah.
There's like that creepy Stranger Things music in the background, like just little songs like that made it, and like crazy synthwave 80s horror kind of stuff going on with Murderface, like that just made the feel even better. So I gotta sidetrack and just say you gotta go check out this. Well, it's beautiful.
It's honestly, I haven't listened to the score at all, but like, well, watching the movie, I guess I have, but like,
Yeah.
going through it would be something that I haven't done yet, individually, and I'm definitely interested in doing. But like I said, like taking a bit of a break from like the album talk for a second, like I said, it's just getting such a big, like, first of all, I'm a huge fan, in any real genre of, it's why I like Hitman so much, because that was like a story that's been literally being told in video games since 1999. I think the first one that came out, and then finally now in 2023, this game just got its last update for Hitman World of like Assassination Trilogy.
Yeah.
And it's much like this, where it's a bunch of callbacks to like, you remember that guy?
Awesome.
Here's
Yeah.
why. You know that dude?
Right.
Remember what that happened to you? This is why.
Let
And
me
you start
give you
to get,
all the reasons why.
you start to get clarity one piece at a time. You're like, oh my fucking God. Like, not only in however long this took in the video game life, or in this case, Dethklok movie time, we have something that was in real life since I was in middle school. And I'm a 30-year-old man. Like being
And like even more so, like this wasn't supposed to happen.
Right.
There was a whole campaign to have this movie and this last album and all this shit happen years ago, and it got laughed at. So the fact that things got shaken around at the network and they actually wanted to do this now is a miracle.
Absolutely.
So like, I think this is something that in our 30s, as these guys that are living this now, we should be really grateful that we even got this. I know there's a lot of people with a lot of opinions, but
and that's fair. It's like
we live in a crazy world, and this is almost a miracle, man. So I'm so happy for the album, the movie, the score, all of it. The fact that we got all this content dump in 1 week for us just to dig through like the dirty content pigs that we are. Like, I love it, man. But I gotta finish this album review on the last song, Mermaider 3.
Okay.
That was so pivotal for this album. I think it was something that people were waiting for ever since the track titles were announced. They were freaking out about it. People are saying that, oh, it's not as heavy or as 2. I think it's the perfect kind of conclusion for the trilogy of songs. It talks about it. If you look through the lyrics, there's a lot of cool stuff. They talk about like forging alliances from land, sky, and from the blackened fire. Like, there's a lot of cool throwbacks in this song. Dusty, there's a couple lines that made me think of you, actually. Within this dying sea, the mermaid 3 arrive. These witches have foreseen the end of everything. Because you were talking about one day in like God of War lore how there's these witches that are in like another, I think it was God of War, in another reality that can't show you exactly what the future is. And I was like, oh, that kind of made me think of like that whole like thing in Hercules too, where those 3 witches that like told the future kind of a thing.
They're the same people, actually. Did you know?
Yeah, that's funny. I didn't even know that.
I think they're called
that's
the
what you were referring
mystics,
to.
I believe is what they call them. It's Greek mythology, like the
super cool.
seers, and like something that happens from that also, like, again, no real spoilers, but like when Nathan's trying to figure out like what's happening and like what am I actually supposed to fucking do, basically like his visions are telling him, is like, whatever's gonna be is gonna be. It's already set in stone. It's just that you feel like you have free will. You're gonna do the right thing or the wrong thing, but guess what, it's already gonna happen. So figure it out.
I feel it.
And
I think the music does a perfect job of piecing with that.
It does a perfect job, I think, of like walking hand in hand with the concepts that are brought out for the physical medium, and then also just to like have a good album run front to back that like music should. If you did like Zeppelin 1, 2, and 3 are some of the best rock and roll albums ever written, but like if you listen to them like track by track and go through, is it telling a story the same way that this is literally telling a story? No. But what those kind of albums do is then they walk you hand in hand through a concept of, here's something that like, interpret it how you will. Like, take it what you want, and obviously make it part to your own life, because that's what art and music are for, is to be impartial and kind of have them be important to you. But we're lucky enough, like I said with Dethklok, that those, we don't have to theorize. There's a movie. You can see what the creators wanted you to do, but you can also take those, if you just listen to the album, besides the silly songs or whatever about like, you know, weed whacking your guts, you can really dig into the idea. Like I said, it holds hand in hand with the concept of this is still a musical album with a lot of thought behind it, and use it like you would for anything else to paint, like you're reading a book, paint a picture. Until you saw what Harry Potter looks like, you can just read a book and just be like, he's this kid. You know what I'm saying? Like he looks like whatever he looks like in your head. And then you get to put that to pen or paper. And then a lot of the times, like I said, when movie adaptations come around for things that are either music or books, and then you're like, that's not how I pictured that person at all. But fuck it, that's a good actor for it, or whatever the creative choice is. We're lucky enough again, in this specific instance, because this is such like an anomaly in all of things where there's like music and movies being written at the same time. Like honestly, they're doing something that I guess I'm sure it's been done before in some substance or context, but like there's been nothing like Dethklok, I believe, that's on, at least not on this like huge scale, especially that's like death metal, but regardless of genre, where you're getting something that's being told as a story and a movie, and you're getting albums. But so we're lucky enough that we know like what Nathan's like, what Pickles is like, what they do. We've already been told who they are, and then so we don't have to do that imagination game the entire time. But then this album does a fantastic job of, again, like walking you through it and showing you like this is where this movie would go, but this is also, as human beings like Brendan Small and Gene Hoglan and so on, this is the music we want to write. This is where we are with it. This is what we can do, and take it and run with it yourself. Like, and that I think was fantastic.
And Dethklok has always been a love letter to metal. Like, don't get that wrong. Like, not you, but the listeners. Like, it's never been like we're gonna try to be the best thing ever. It's always been a reflection of the times and a reflection of the metal that I think Brendan Small and Gene Hoglan obviously appreciate. But and Brian Beller, and everyone else that works on these and produces these, and it's just a love letter to metal itself. That's why they have so many metal musicians cameo in the show and in the movie. Is they're just like, fuck it, like let's get Amy Lee in here, let's get Scott from Anthrax in here, let's get all these people, Kirk Hammett, to fucking show how much we love this genre. And I think it's always been a love letter, and this is definitely probably the best send-off for a series that I think I've ever seen, like especially for an album. If this is going to be their last album, I think this was a great send-off. They gave people more of what they wanted, and they subverted expectations at the same time.
They didn't Sopranos you.
No, fuck. I'm so glad they didn't, especially with the music. If they were going to do that musically, I was about to shit myself, bro.
God damn it.
I've been so happy about this album. I'd probably rate it 4.75 out of 5 banana stickers. I
am going to sit pretty much right with you, because we used to do these album reviews, we would sit at like a 10-point scale and we try to judge them objectively, but I do think that it's like we can use the hot dad scale. Like,
there you go.
Which is, what is this trying to achieve, has always been I feel like a out of 5 rating system, because when you go to like 3 could be good or good, you know what I mean, like either way. So I'm going to sit like the 4.5, like the 4.5 to like 4.75. Couple of things I wish that they would have had a little more depth with, but the way, like, I can't gush about it enough for like what was this trying to achieve, both literally in story writing and connotation, but also like, let's come back, let's punch their dicks in, let's go hard, but then also here's these few songs that have a little bit more depth to them and things like that. Like, I guess I don't even know what I would do to give it like a full 5. I would say probably just, if there was like, maybe I don't even need like another song on there, but just like, maybe even if they order the tracks a little bit different, but you can't because of how that's telling the story and the fucking, they released it and the reason for they did. But I guess I don't know what this could do to give me a perfect 5, but yeah, it's definitely sitting in the upper 4, like for what this wanted to be and was and is, like, it's about as good as they could do. And I'm great. Like I said, we should be grateful, because this could have never been a thing, and there was this started as a cult classic cartoon that was just shown for 12-minute episodes at like midnight, and now Warner Brothers has Warner Brothers bought it, and we have a fucking like almost hour and a half long movie that has like amazing amount of obviously money and animation poured into it that we asked for, and I'm glad that was able to come out.
I just ordered my Dethalbum IV vinyl from Revolver magazine. Should be shipping this week, so I'm excited about that.
Fuck yeah, dude.
We finally complete our collection now. I guess technically we would need the Doomstar Requiem soundtrack, but it's so fucking rare. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to find one unless they do a reprinting. But I kind of want to find an original because we have all first printings now. So
that's
pretty fucking
dude.
cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, right? So I got that shit under lock and key, and I only listen to it when I can make sure my cat's not going to jump on the vinyl player like
That's
a fucking bitch.
That's
I love her, but god damn it, that's annoying.
That cats be
Like,
cat, you know what I'm saying?
I know. I'm like, fuck, I spent so much money on this vinyl. Fuck you.
You don't understand. Stop puking in the bass tracks. You're drinking the fucking drum song.
You're drinking the drum tricks.
But I'm very excited for
Dick Nubler. I know we're not going to spoil anything, but I'll say it. I'm sorry. You should have fucking watched the movie.
Right.
Okay?
The guy's supposed to have been dead about like 3 times now anyway. So
I know.
I'm
It's
glad that
fucking
he did what he
hilarious.
needed to do to... I'm glad they put him out in the way that he did. He was such a pivotal part of this movie, which was honestly fucking awesome. But
Yeah.
it's called Metal Baby. Fucking try it, you dick.
Hey, what do you think your role in this band is, babe?
But I'm very excited for you to get to see Dethklok, meet Brendan, do the VIP access.
dude.
That's in like about a month or so, something like that.
Yeah, a month from yesterday of this recording.
Is
Yeah,
it late September
and,
or October that they're here in
late
Omaha?
September. September 28th, they'll be at the Steel House in Omaha, Nebraska.
It is
Me and Anna
sold
were
out.
fortunate enough to get some VIP tickets that come with meet and greet. We get our own little lanyards, and then we also get a sit-in on sound check. So that's going to be fucking cool.
That's gonna be-
Get a little sneak preview of the fucking set before we get to watch them. So no, I'm more than excited. Brendan Small just liked my Instagram comment where I said "see you in Omaha," so I had a little nerd boner going on. I was like, "Fuck yeah, dude!
Right.
I will see you in Omaha." So that's pretty cool. Someone on the Metalocalypse fan group in Facebook was like, "Oh, I got a meet and greet for Omaha too." I was like, "Sick, dude!" Like,
See you there, dick butt.
yeah, it's gonna be a sick show. So I'm excited to see that and just meet Brendan and Gene and tell them how much this means to me and Anna. So yeah, this album was just exactly what I think the world needed from Dethklok at the exact time that they needed it. So
Right.
much love to Brendan Small, to Dethklok in general, to everyone involved with this project. You guys are continuing to blow our dicks out of our pants and hit us in the face with cinder blocks, and we fucking love it, man.
Absolutely, dude.
I can't say enough good shit about this album. Get out there, go stream it on Spotify, and tell us in the comments what you guys think.
Absolutely. Like and honestly, that's why we do it. We want to be able to be interactive with you guys. It's not just all about us, but
No.
we're the authority on the matter. But we, but like I said, yeah, if you guys got favorite tracks off the album, if you wish they would have done something a little bit differently, or if you liked what they were doing, fuck yeah, let us know, man. To kind of wrap a bow on this. All right. From least to best, I would say
Are we ranking albums
1, 3, 4, 2.
from least to best?
Yep, one for me was
3,
the
4, 2.
yeah 1, then 3, then 2, then 4, then still 2 is my favorite album.
So from least to best, 1, 3, 2, 4.
So this one ends. Yeah, so we have we have a
think
very
this one
similar
is one
taste.
a little
but-
higher for me. Yeah, like 1 will always be amazing. It's going to be the one that you have nostalgia for because it got you into it. It is a good album. Don't get me wrong.
100%.
Lost Vikings is so underrated. 2 had the most breakout material, I think, for them. Where pretty much every song is a banger. Like there's not a song on there that I think was weak or like not in place.
Right.
3 for me was like, oh my god, they've technically gotten so much better and the producing is better. It just sounds cleaner.
But I just didn't
yeah,
have the
again,
same
4
love for it that I did for 2.
4 just blew my dick out of my pants, man. Like that's I haven't felt that way about Dethklok since maybe 2.
Well, that's why, yeah, that's fair to put it all the way. That's why this one's like my 3rd favorite, and I think the only thing that holds 2 above it over me is just like I said, like the depth of songs and things that like I just personally my ear like a little bit
Yeah.
more. But again, yeah, no, they've obviously came into their own, and you know, Dethkast will keep going. Now we got to make Dethkast content about the Requiem
dude,
and
the gears
this.
are already moving. Yeah, the Discord's blown up with ideas in the think tank. As far as what do we do now, how do we proceed, what timeline are we in, where are we going, like we're still cooking up shit, but we'll totally have more Dethkast coming out, especially an Army of the Doomstar one, a Requiem thing, and then we're gonna keep pushing after the story that we're given.
So even if there's not much left from the actual studios, we don't have any restrictions.
Yeah, why not? It's fan content. So real quick, for those of you who have watched the movie, I was dicking around with this AI the other day, asking it questions. And I asked it enough about Metalocalypse to where it knew what it was and it knew about the movie, right? Mm-hmm. So then I asked it, what happens to the world after the Metalocalypse, right? Huh. Here's the answer it gave me. This is actually very, very cool. With Dethklok's influence and their dedication to rebuilding society, the world experienced a resurgence of creativity, innovation. The power of music became a unifying force, bringing people of all walks of life together. The once fractured and divided nations began to find common ground, fostering a global sense of collaboration and cooperation. As a result, technology and scientific advancements flourished. With the support of Dethklok's resources, brilliant minds around the world were able to dedicate themselves to pushing the boundaries of human knowledge. Medical breakthroughs led to improved healthcare for all, while sustainable energy solutions helped combat the environmental challenges. Culture, too, underwent a renaissance. The arts in all forms were celebrated and encouraged. Musicians, artists, and performers thrived, with Dethklok leading the charge in supporting and nurturing talent. Festivals and concerts became grand spectacles, drawing people from all corners of the globe to celebrate the beauty and creativity. Despite the newfound peace and progress, challenges still existed. The scars of the Metalocalypse remained, and healing the wounds from the past took time. But with Dethklok as beacons of hope and inspiration, the world never lost sight of the lessons they learned from those dark days. Generations to come grew in a world where music and art and unity were cherished. The legacy of Dethklok endured, with the music continuing to inspire and ignite the flame of passion within the hearts of all who listened. The world, forever changed by the Metalocalypse, stood as a testament to the triumph of the human spirit over adversity.
Fuck yeah, dude. That goddamn computers are smart.
I think that's like a perfect continuation of what would happen after this movie. Mm-hmm. Like, the world rebuilds. It's a whole new kind of utopia of music and learning and science and all these things that Dethklok now is helping with.
Right.
I was just like, holy shit, dude! AI can do anything, and it scares the fuck out of me. But
and I
was
for
just
one,
so curious. I had to know, so I thought that was a really cool thought to end on. If you've seen the movie, think about that. Wouldn't that be so cool to see something talk about this? I mean, that might be something we run with for Dethkast, for you Dethkast fans. So who knows?
We have
so many ideas floating around. Yeah, we'll keep you guys in the loop. If you haven't joined the Discord yet, join the Discord. There's links everywhere. If you don't have them, find us on Instagram, find us on Twitter, find us anywhere.
DM us for a link. We'll send you one back.
Yeah. It's free. We don't give a fuck.
Yeah, no.
Join us.
And if you are so kind to support us, obviously just boost us on Discord. And that'd be awesome. Like I said, and that way we can. Cause that's how we get the sultry sounds of these airwaves to get enough power behind them. Because everything has a paywall. But like I said, if you guys are so kind, even $5 would help us to continue to make these fucking episodes sound as good as they do.
And if you're interested in boosting the Discord server, we do have a rewards program. So if you're curious about that, there are some pretty cool stuff for you guys in there. We have a VIP boosted lounge, a VIP boosted chat.
You get early access
to all our content. Yeah, at least 24 hours early on everything we do. And now we have an executive producer's role. So if you want to get more on the Geekly, get in the Discord, baby. It's the only way to be up to date on Geekly news.
Absolutely. Well, fuck yeah, dude. This album ripped. I'm glad that we all got some more content as fans.
Fuck yeah.
If you're listening to it for a while, you got a show to look forward to and more things to do. I mean, like I said, it's the end for now.
For now. Yeah, but it's I think this was an appropriate end for everybody. So yeah. With that, we're gonna end this appropriately by thanking you all for listening. Thank you for being a part of the Geekly. Whether you're in the Discord or this is your first time listening, we appreciate you guys. As always, I've been Lucian, the weirdo with a beardo.
Yep. No, I'm Dustin. Yep.
Yeah.
But thanks, you guys. We'll talk to you again soon.
Greetings! I'm Danny Filth of Cradle of Filth, and you're listening to the weekly Geekly.